Hi, I'm Dr. Rod and welcome to my bike surgery. Each week a Men and Motors viewer comes along to seek my advice with a bike problem. My guest this week is Bernard McNally from Yorkshire, who is returning to biking after 20 years. But Bernard hasn't just bought his classic Electra Glide, this is the actual Harley-Davidson he enjoyed riding as a lad, and it hasn't been on the road for 2 decades. My mission, should I choose to accept it, is to get the bike running smoothly and safely. Hi Bernard, very nice to meet you. What a fantastic looking bike.
Thank you, yeah.
That's a real piece of sculpture, isn't it?
It truly is, I agree with you.
Yeah, how old is this one then?
I bought it new in 1978.
You bought it new?
Bought it new.
Right.
I rode it for 5 years and for one reason or another I packed it away and I haven't ridden it since 1984.
So she's been off the road for what? 20 years?
20 years now.
20 years. Yeah. You must have missed her terribly.
I've still enjoyed her, you know, she's still been there, but I've missed riding her. I made the mistake of buying a car. That's where I went wrong.
So I guess after 20 years she's probably suffering from 1 or 2 problems, is she?
That's what I think, that's what I'm here for. You tell me what I should look for.
Right. I mean, she does look to be more or less, one piece, but obviously time has taken its toll on 1 or 2 things, and she might just need a little bit of TLC to get her running again.
Yeah,
but,
I think so.
Yeah, wheel her into the shop.
Okay.
Let's have a go and let's see if we can get her fired up for you, and you might be riding her later on today.
Okay.
Harleys are rather different to work on than most of the bikes, and some may say their design is somewhat, agricultural. But that basic big V-twin has been in production since 1909 and has gone through many evolutions. The Shovelhead which we have here is one of their classic designs first introduced in 1966 and represents an iconic stage in Harley's development history. These bikes do require a different approach to working on a modern Japanese bike, but the results can be very rewarding and lots of fun. Well, Bernard, here she's on the bench, and I have to say, for a bike that's been stood for 20 years, this is in remarkably good condition. I guess she's been in a woodworking shop, has she?
Exactly, you spotted that.
Right, yeah, I noticed there's lots of signs of sawdust, but at least it's been dry.
Yes,
and that's the important thing, so there's not too many signs of things seized up or missing. 1 or 2 jobs that obviously do need looking at before we start running her on the road, and the first thing that has really sort of grabbed my attention is this rear brake.
Right.
I don't know if there's a story behind that, but obviously there's a brake pipe missing there.
The story is that the original part I found just so difficult to get hold of. Right. So I had a copper pipe made up, and it's since snapped.
Right.
So.
Is that one of the reasons why she's been standing for so long?
No, that's not one of the reasons at all. It's simply that it's just the bottom of my priority list.
Yeah, it's just one of those jobs that you intend to get round to.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if we can't do something about it now. It's quite an unusual setup on this bike in that you've got a master cylinder down here for the rear brake, mounted up on these lovely, beautifully elegant sculpted front footboards. The brake pipe, this rigid brake pipe, then should run back to a junction block in the middle of the bike, and then there's a flexible hose that goes from there right up to the caliper on the rear wheel. So this is a brake pipe that somebody's had a go at making but hasn't finished off.
Yeah, that's right.
What I'm going to suggest, Bernard, we can replace that brake pipe with an aftermarket braided stainless steel one, which is be a little bit more expensive, but it's a lot higher spec, and it'll also have that advantage of being flexible. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this one off here. Now that simply is on a gland nut that screws into the cylinder, so that I should be able to just wind out of there. And then what we're going to replace it with is a braided stainless one. I notice you have a braided stainless line on the front brake.
Yeah, I got round to doing that.
Right. And did you find it improved?
It certainly has, yeah.
So what I've done today is I've got a braided steel hose like this one because I knew you were coming. What we're actually going to do is make this up so it'll fit on to replace your original one. Now these braided steel hoses come in the form of a kit, so you can buy different end fittings to go onto them. And what I've done is first of all cut a piece of brake pipe to length. I've got a replacement fitting there for one end. What I need to do now is put another fitting onto there. This is a fitting as they come, and this is usually what you do in a workshop because it does need a little bit of care to make sure they go together correctly. I've trimmed the end of the brake pipe down there, and as that fitting goes in, that brass olive, can you see that olive?
Yes.
Just sits into there like that. That gland nut then slides over the top of that and screws onto there. And that's what forms the hydraulic seal. So I now need 2 spanners to tighten that up. And hopefully I've got the right ones to hand. There we go, that's one of them. And the other one I think should be 1/2 inch. Of course these are all imperial sizes, because it's an American bike and American fitting. So all I do now is tighten that up, and what that's doing is compressing that brass olive inside the fitting, because that hose obviously has to hold quite a lot of hydraulic pressure. When you stamp your foot on the brakes in a panic, then that's where all the pressure is inside there, so that needs nipping up quite tight. Now, even once these are on the bike and the brake's working correctly, what I'd want to do is check that. Certainly the first few hundred miles, keep having a look at it and make sure there's no sign of any brake fluid seeping out of there. If there is, it needs taking apart and another seal making. It's got to be absolutely pressure tight as that one. The first thing I noticed looking over Bernard's Harley was the rear brake pipe, which seemed to be in a very sorry state. The original setup had a rigid pipe going to a union block partway down the bike, and this rigid brake pipe was damaged and had been bodged. What we decided to do was to fit a new braided steel hose which is flexible and will replace the rigid original. This should make a radical improvement. So what we're going to do now is fit the brake pipe on. Do you want to have a go at this?
No.
Brave man. I hope you are going to get your hands dirty on this bike at some point, Bernard. If I pop that down into there like that union, as long as they've supplied us with the right thread, which I'm sure they have, that should wind straight down into there, and it'll seal with the right size spanner, and it'll seal into the original mounting. So there we go. Now this is of course deviating from standard, but it's not unusual to fit braided stainless pipes as aftermarket accessories onto bikes like this. I'm sure it won't detract from the value of the bike. Before I nip it up finally though, what I want to do is route it through the bike, and we'll hook it up into the brake junction block at the back, because if I tighten that up and then we find we have to do this with it, we can twist the thing round. One great advantage of these is they all swivel around, so you can get it all hooked up and then position it as you want it. So what I'm going to do now is feed the brake pipe through here. Now it's quite important of course that it doesn't touch on the exhaust pipe there, because if it does and the engine's running, then that's going to get hot and it's going to melt the brake pipe, and that obviously you don't want to happen. So what we've got there is a mounting, and that brake pipe's going to clip into there, and that'll keep it nice and tidy and tucked out of the way. Right, all that remains to be done now on this rear brake line, now we've got it all hooked up, I'll just make sure that that's running true, and then I'll nip the unions up, let's put some brake fluid in, and let's bleed the brake, and hopefully that's one problem solved.
Good.
Okay. And so to recap, the next part of the job was to hook up the union block in the midsection of the bike. This junction not only serves to connect the two halves of the brake line together, but it also has a hydraulic switch which controls the rear stoplight. Right, so if I slacken this bleed nipple off now, and if you pump that pedal, there we go. As Bernard's pumping the pedal, there's nice fresh fluid coming all the way through the system. And all we do is pump that until all those air bubbles disappear, and then the brake's fully bled, and the bike should be safe for test drive, as long as we can get it running. So what made you choose a Harley when you first bought that, Bernard? Because there must have been any other number of bikes you could have had for the same kind of money or even less.
Well, it's a beautiful thing to start off with. The sound it makes, big attraction, big draw. 1200 cc's of beautiful power.
Okay, shall we pop back and have another look and see what we can do to get it back on the road then?
Okay, let's do that.
Right, what we've done now is run some charge into the battery, Bernard, so let's have a go at connecting the electrics up and see if there's any sign of life.
Okay.
And this is, it's quite a tricky job fitting this battery, really, isn't it?
It is.
We've got, I always start by connecting up the positive side first, and then the negative second, and that's to avoid getting any kind of sparks or short circuits. Particularly on this bike, we've got lots of leads which are rather close to the engine. And well, we should be doing a little bit of polishing in amongst as well. She's starting to clean up a little bit. Do you think you'll ever clean this one up and restore her back to her original? I'm
open to restore her, yeah. I want to spend as little time as possible polishing. I've had enough of that over the years.
This is a bike for riding then?
Well, yeah.
But am I right in thinking you were talking about maybe powder coating the frame? And
yeah, a thorough job. I want to do a thorough job once, and once it's done, start to look after it, which is what I didn't do last time.
Right. But it looks like nothing's really gone terminal, has it?
No.
There's a little bit of corrosion on the wheels. But
yeah, new stainless steel spokes there. That should be all right.
Right. Now these two leads at the back are both earth leads, so they need to be connected. And of course you can get... Did you say you've got new stainless steel
I've got
spokes?
the spokes, yeah. It's just a case of getting the wheels rebuilt.
And you can still buy new wheel rims, of course.
Well, I think I'm going to powder coat the wheel rims. I quite fancy them black.
Right. So it's going to be a little bit of a customising job then, is it?
Very mild custom.
Right. Can I ask you to just reach in there with a sponge?
Yeah,
See
sure.
if you can tighten that bolt.
Yeah.
Right, and then what we've got to do next, to secure this battery, there's a top cover goes on, but we have the original chrome trim
Yeah.
to go on there. So can I just take that off you while...
Yeah.
Okay, and this is quite a tricky little piece of kit to engage, I believe, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Do you want me to show you how to do it?
Have we got that bolted up? Let's just make sure the terminals are right. Have you got the right spanner?
I think this is the right one now.
Okay. And of course, with any bike, you would always connect the positive terminal first and then the negative terminal. And it's simply to avoid any risk of getting short circuits when wires are flailing around loose as you're working on the bike.
Okay, that's a good earth, I think.
Okay, that looks sound. Right, and this cover goes on before the top one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the advantage of me here, Bernard.
Okay,
You've done this before.
Yeah, if you can pull the kickstart back for me.
Okay. So that engine feels to have some good compression. Are your leads okay there?
Yeah, let's thread this in carefully.
Nice.
It's almost there.
These wires should be inside that cover, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Not outside.
No, outside actually.
Should be outside, okay. Let's just... Right, your battery breather pipe is inside.
Fiddle, fiddle.
Okay. And it's like anything that's specially made for it will only go on with one particular way, won't it?
That's right.
It's a massive battery, isn't it, by bike standards?
It's enormous.
Yeah, because it's a great big engine, it'll need lots and lots of clout to spin it over. You want me to hold that strap?
Could you do that? Just see where it fits, yeah.
Yeah, I see it. Just move the top over, it needs to sit on top of this cover
Okay.
there, does it? I'm not sure, is that on correctly, Bernard?
That's good enough, Rod.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I see, that whole strap just holds the entire thing up.
That's it. Let's slacken this off.
I think this looks marvellous, this great big chrome battery housing that's hung off the side. Am I right in thinking it's one of your less favoured styles?
It is. It's the one part of the bike that I'm not happy with.
Yeah.
The shape of this cover.
So, we've got oil in the bike.
Yes.
We've got fuel in the bike. We've got fresh petrol in there. And we've now got some electrical power in here. Let's turn this on. This beautiful Gothic switch up here. We just flick that on. Yep. And we've got some signs of life in the electrical system. So, ready for the big start-up?
Yeah.
And, well, put back in part 2 to see if it runs. Welcome to part 2 of Dr. Rod's bike surgery, as I help to get Bernard McNally's classic 1978 Harley Electra Glide going after 20 years off the road. After quite a bit of work in part 1, Bernard's going to start it up. Let's see what happens. Fantastic, excellent. That sounds really good, Bernard. That's fantastic. I didn't expect it to sound anywhere near as good as that. I suppose the next step is to actually take the bike out and you have a ride on it.
That'd be nice.
After 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years, yeah.
Brilliant. There's nothing quite like a Harley-Davidson. It has a sort of road presence you just don't get with any other make of bike. And this classic from the 1970s has much more personality than anything you can get in the showrooms today. Even the very latest Harleys don't have quite the charisma of the old Shovelhead. I'm certainly delighted to see Bernard's old Harley performing so well on its initial test run. No doubt there will be one or two problems to sort out when he comes back, but it will certainly give us a feel of how it's running. The main concerns I have with a bike that hasn't been turned over for 2 decades is with oil circulation and general engine lubrication. Fluids in an engine are very important. Ignore these areas and it could lead to an engine seizure or other serious mechanical problem. Certainly everything here seems to be okay so far. The other areas of concern will be the state of the brakes and tyres, which will need careful attention after 20 years without use. Back here in the workshop, let's see how Bernard's got on with his test ride. So Bernard, what was she like?
Well, it was enjoyable, but one or two things came to light, things that need a bit of fine-tuning, a bit of adjustment.
Yeah. How did she handle after all that time?
Didn't like the corners. I think the rubber's was 20 years old. I think that needs changing
Yeah.
That's quite an important job.
Yeah, very sensible. And I believe you've actually got some new tyres.
I've done that, yeah. Yeah, well, the wheels are going to be rebuilt as well, so the whole wheels are going to be new.
Right, smash it. I noticed the rear brake's working.
It's working, yeah. Yeah.
And you can actually see the lines on the disc there where the pads are starting to pick up on that. That will probably mean that you need to put new pads in at some point. Course, I mean, obviously the brake pads are 20 years old as well.
That's right.
So I wouldn't want to run those indefinitely. So there's one or two things that might benefit from adjustment.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that the clutch wasn't working quite as it...
I think that needs some adjustment, yeah.
We can have a quick look at that. The various things I'd like to have a quick check over on the engine to make sure everything's okay. One thing that we shouldn't need to bother with on this is valve clearances, because of course these engines have hydraulic valve lifters. Am I right?
Originally they do,
right,
but this one doesn't.
But this one doesn't.
No, I've put solid lifters in here.
Right.
So
which is that's a performance modification, I believe, is it?
Reliability. That's the reason I put it in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that we will now need to look at. Just
we could look at that. Yeah, it sounded a little bit rattly.
Did it? Right.
So I'd like to look at that.
Now this is rather new to me, so Bernard's going to show me how to adjust the solid lifters on this Harley engine. So the first thing we've got to do then, Bernard, is...
Take the air filter cover off so we can see what we're doing.
And that's just going to give us a bit more space to work, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what we've already had to do is set the engine to the right place. Shall I just take that off you?
Thank you.
Great. Lovely. And that's your air filter.
That's the air filter.
That actually looks... doesn't look too bad, actually.
That's new, that's why.
I'll just pop that down there. Right, and this is the air filter back plate that connects to the carburetor.
That's right, just 2 screws and it's off.
I see. This obviously gives you a lot more room to work.
Yeah.
Right, but what we've had to do in order to check the valve clearances, which is where we come into, is set the engine in a certain position.
You need the front cylinder, the piston in the front cylinder at top dead centre.
Right, shall I take that off you?
Thank you.
That's great, 2 screws to go with it. Oh, now we can actually see a lot more of the engine now, of course. This is obviously the carburetor here.
That's right. Yeah.
What kind of a carb is that? It looks a bit
Keihin, it's a Keihin.
It is, that's a Japanese carburetor then?
The original, yeah.
Right, but you can get performance carbs.
You can indeed, yeah, I've never tried it. They seem to do the job.
Yeah, so what you do is put the engine on top dead centre at the front cylinder and set these 2.
Yeah.
And then you put it on top dead centre at the rear cylinder and set the other 2.
That's right, yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Right, so to pop this push rod back on then, this tube.
That needs to seat. There's a cork gasket down the bottom.
Right.
And there's a cork gasket up the top. Make sure those 2 seat well.
I see. Because if that isn't in properly, the thing will leak oil.
You're just going to leak oil, that's right. And then the fixing clip. And that's that on that cylinder.
And that's it, simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that.
Excellent. Right, I think they must be ready for another cup of coffee then, Bernard.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go and put the kettle on. And after all that, it's coffee time again. So here we are, Bernard. What's it feel like being back on the road after 20 years layoff?
Well, it's real nice. I enjoyed it. A lot colder than I remember.
Yeah, we haven't picked the best day for it, really.
No, it's a poor day, but still enjoyable.
Yeah, I have to say, out there, you really looked like you'd just come straight from California. But perhaps a bit colder and wetter than you'd find out.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah. You've done quite a lot of mileage on this bike in the past,
yeah, I've done some good journeys. We emigrated to Germany in, I think it was 81, 82.
Really?
We stayed, lived there for a year.
Yeah.
And rode the bike over there whilst I stayed.
Right. Well, you actually got on the bike to emigrate?
We did, yes. It was fully loaded. It was an enormous pack on the back, all our belongings.
What, this was like a family trip?
Well, it was myself and my wife. We decided we'd go and live there.
Right.
Well, it was actually the start of a world tour that never happened. We stayed in Germany for 12 months. And that.
Yeah, I did notice when you were out there that everywhere you go on a Harley-Davidson, people stop and point. You get that more with a Harley than you do with anything else.
Certainly did in 78, yeah. Yeah, perhaps not as much these days, because they seem to be everywhere.
So what are your plans for the future then, Bernard? Are you intending to go abroad again on this one? Or?
I certainly am, yeah. I'm intending to do extensive touring of Europe. Hopefully I can get this really nicely set up. And yeah, I know people have done it on Shovelheads, and so it's possible, and that's what I'm planning to do. Right,
Bernard, let's have a go at putting this screen back on the front.
Okay.
This is a wonderful arrangement of screens and lamps here.
Yeah.
Just make sure we don't drop anything off that. This is obviously the sort of Harley-Davidson
that goes underneath there, yeah.
trademark, isn't it? It's a magnificent piece of kit. And you actually made the screen yourself, I believe?
I did, yeah. The old one was scratched, and I mean this doesn't look too good now, but yeah, I just got a sheet of Lexan and used the old one as a template and made a new one.
Incredible, isn't it? Just tell me if I've got this right. Does that pull over the side of here like that?
The spacer goes in.
Oh, I see. There's a spacer in the top.
In the top, yeah.
Right. So the whole thing is quickly removable and...
yeah, well, quickly. I don't know about quickly, but...
Relatively.
Yeah.
So why would you take this off then?
In the summer it's just nice to feel the breeze, you know, as we get the wind in your chest, it's really quite pleasant.
And obviously on a day like today when the weather's not so good, it's quite good to run with the screen.
Yeah, hide behind the screen.
Yeah. Now the spotlights, of course, and the front winkers are going to be clamped onto this front winker bar here. So there's quite a lot of finishing off and things to do to bring the bike back to a former glory. But you can now see what she's going to look like when everything's mounted up properly. So there's still lots of finishing off to do.
And cleaning, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, how have we gone on? Has this inspired you to finish the project?
Yeah, absolutely it has. Yeah. Next year I shall be stripping it right back.
Yeah.
And starting from scratch.
And look at that, revealed in her all the glory that she's been hiding for the last 20 years. It's magnificent. So well, good luck with the rest of the restoration, Bernard. And
okay.
I hope that goes well for you. And do bring her back. Let's have a look
certainly
at
will. Yeah, we'll be doing that.
Fantastic bike. It's been a real pleasure to work on it. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Rod.
And that's another satisfied customer for Dr. Rod. Do come back next week to find out what we're going to do with this. And in the meantime, keep the rubber side down.